we love bringing you things like this. This particular event is our property after death, and it's going to explain to you everything you need to know, so you don't have to worry about when we make that transition um, that we all have to do. But this is very, very important, and just like me, it took a long time for me to be able to talk about this, but you have to do it. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up, well, I know our new state senator was supposed to be here today. Our new state senator that took Jackie Collins's place, Willie Preston, but I just got off the phone with him. He's still downstate taking care of our business. And I know this side will really love it because we were talking about doing some additions like the Dolls Park that has that little tiny little park, and also O'Halloran Park right down the street, and Foster Park School. So we got some good things coming up. But without further ado, I want to bring up my friend Robert from the clerk's office, and she's going to talk to us. We're going to do some housekeeping, and hope you enjoy this. Come on up.
Thank you, Alderman Curtis. I thought you were going to be MIA. Not you. So thank you, everybody, for coming out to be with us this afternoon. And I'm Robin Staggers with the Cook County Clerk's Office, your Cook County Clerk. And what we're going to do now, before I really get started, is to have Lindsay come up, Lindsay Chase, who is my assistant, to give you some housekeeping rules.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the first thing we're going to go over is the restrooms. So the restrooms are located out the back behind the Cook County Clerk's vendor table. When you go to the left, the first bathroom is the women's, and further down the hallway is the men's. And the next thing we're going to go over is the forms that you received when you came in the door at the check-in table. So you got two different sets of forms. The first one that you got on top is the property fraud alert. It looks like this. This is the first one that you got. If you didn't get any forms, please let us know. And the second one you got is a 2-page form. It's the toady. Yes.
And when they didn't get a form, I know you have one.
If you didn't get a form, let me know, because I have a whole set here. Anybody else that didn't get a form? Didn't get forms? The toadie's on the back, and this is on the front. It's the whole package. It's the whole package. Okay, so we're good on forms. And so the other two items that you got were 3 note cards at the front. Please use the note cards and your pen to write down any questions that you have for the attorneys, and we'll collect these at the end of the presentation and answer your questions. Did anybody not get note cards or pens? If you raise your hand, me and Mr. Cross will be happy to give it to you, okay? Or if you need extras, we'll be happy to give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. So, I've introduced myself, and what instructions did Lindsay give you? What are you going to do with the note cards? And what else? Hold your questions until the end. And you're going to silence your cell phones. So put them on silent so that the ringing does not interfere with the flow of the presentation. Okay? So we're going to give a demerit to the first person whose phone goes off during our presentation. Okay? So, Do you know who our Cook County Clerk is? Karen Yarbrough. See, it's right there. Karen Yarbrough is your Cook County Clerk. And I need to thank Alderman Curtis and Senator Willie Preston for collaborating with us on this event, because we are here and they have made it possible for us to bring this to you. Now, Ms. Yarbrough is the reason why we're out in the community. And we are so grateful to her for allowing us to bring this event out to you, because she is very passionate about what she does, and she's very, very, very passionate, even more so, about helping people who are victimized. A lot of times our elders and our people are victimized with regard to property fraud, with regard to a number of things. And she has made it her quest to bring this information to you. Let's see. Excuse me. I'm joined tonight by a number of people. Our staff, Lindsay Chase is my assistant. Brian Cross is our Veteran Services Director. We're joined by the Center for Disabilities and Elder Law in the back. James Gleffy is our legal counsel at Cook County Clerk's Office and our labor counsel. And we also have Lisa Murray from the Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. So let's not forget Carlos, who's making all this possible with the video and all of that. Carlos Rodriguez, he's here with us. So we brought staff here to support you, and all you have to do is ask us questions after the presentation, right? Now, I have some questions. How many of you know it's easier to steal a home than it is a car? You do know that. Okay. We'll be talking about property fraud and our free property fraud alert service. How many of you plan to live forever? You're going to live on one side or the other. Okay, how many of you have a plan for transferring your wealth to your loved ones in the event of your death? Oh, that's a good number. That's a good number. How many have a will? How many have a trust? Okay. How many have no plan at all? Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. That's why we're here. All right. We are here to share with you some important information about having a plan to transfer your hard-earned assets to your loved one. Now note, our staff are not allowed to give legal advice. These people in these blue shirts, we can bring information to you and educate you, but we cannot give you legal advice. We have Lisa here, who is a licensed estate planning attorney that can answer all of your legal questions. We have the Center for Disability and Elder Law that's here that can answer legal questions for you. So please utilize them. If you have any questions after the event, and especially those that are particular to your situation. Now, our Veteran Services Office, Brian Cross is the Director for Veteran Services. And I want him to come up and please share with you some information about what we do in our Veteran Services Office. How many of you are veterans? Oh, we have a number of them in our office. Okay. How many have registered their DD-214s in our office? Okay, Brian, give them some more information.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming out. The Cook County Clerk's Office has been registering DD-214s since about 1945. We had about 300,000 veterans who have registered their DD-214s with us. The purpose of that is we are the safekeeper for your military records, as we are for your property records. So if you want to record your DD-214, please bring it down. We're at 118 North Clark, room 120, and I will be happy to assist you. We'll get you in and out in about 20 minutes, half hour. Also, tonight, you got a great opportunity. Who here likes the White Sox? For our veterans, we have free tickets. We have free tickets for our vets. Monday through Thursday, any home game, except for the Cubs and the Red Sox. But when you're done and we're done with this evening, I'm going to be in the back corner. Come on back, and I'll sign you up for a military veteran discount card, and we'll get you your card, and it'll entitle you to free tickets to the White Sox. So thank you very much, and have a great afternoon and the rest of your evening. We also have other than the White Sox, we have about 160 other vendors, and we're always trying to get more. So, yep, we got different restaurants, stuff like that. So thank you very much again.
We have an interpreter here. So is there anyone here that needs an interpreter, Spanish interpreter? No one? Okay. Now, we are going to, I gave you a brief introduction. Did I give you the brief introduction about the clerk's office? Do you know what the clerk's office? Do you know what the clerk's office does? Anybody knows what the Cook County Clerk's Office does? Not the Cook County Circuit Court Clerk, the Cook County Clerk. What do? We used to be the Recorder of Deeds. Now we merged with the Cook County Clerk's Office. So does anybody know what we do in the Cook County Clerk's Office? No, not property taxes. Nope. We record deeds we record documents on your chain of title. So your deed, any liens, any releases, all of that that comes to our office, we record it on your deed. So you have a 10-digit PIN number. You guys know you have a 10-digit PIN number. Do you know how to check your deed? You do? We're going to tell you how to do that tonight. But you need to know how to check your deed, okay? Because that's your hard-earned asset. And that's probably the most valuable piece of wealth that you have. So you need to learn how to protect it. So tonight, what we're going to do is give you our presentation to let you know some of the services that are available to you through the Cook County Clerk's Office, the property fraud alert, and the property after death. So we're ready. Let's roll.
Please note, there are lawyers present today who work for the Cook County Clerk's Office, but although they are lawyers, they are not your lawyers. They can answer any questions related to the office, but they cannot and will not offer you legal advice. However, the volunteer attorneys on this panel today are sharing their time and expertise with you as a public service. They are not paid by the clerk's office to be here, and you are free to hire them, or any qualified attorney, to address your legal concerns. Legal Aid of Chicago is also present today. They can offer legal advice for free, and we encourage you to inquire if you qualify for their services. Thank you, and enjoy the presentation.
Hello, and welcome. I'm Karen Yarbrough, your Cook County Clerk. Thank you for joining me and us for this presentation on property fraud and managing your property after death. The Cook County Clerk's Office is one of the largest consolidated clerk's offices in the entire nation. In addition to functioning as the chief election authority for suburban Cook County, the clerk's office maintains birth, marriage, and death records. Our office also assists property owners in redeeming delinquent taxes and serves as the clerk to the Cook County Board of Commissioners. The clerk's office also has a recording operations division, which records, stores, and maintains land records and other official documents, including deeds, transfer on death instruments, as well as tax and real estate documents. Now, nobody wants to talk about death or end-of-life planning. But when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And we all need to be aware of the threat of property fraud and how we can guard against this type of financial crime. At the Cook County Clerk's Office, we are here to serve, and we hope that this information you receive today will be helpful on these important issues that impact all of our daily lives. Now, let me introduce you to my trusty assistant who will guide us through this presentation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin our discussion, we want to let you know that we will have volunteer attorneys available at the end of the presentation who can answer your questions about the topics we will be covering. If you are joining our program via Zoom and have questions that come up during the presentation, simply type your question in the Q&A section through your Zoom link and the attorneys will respond accordingly. Now, let's begin our discussion by talking about property fraud, which can also be known as deed fraud. So, what exactly is property fraud? Property fraud is the fraudulent and illegal recording of a document against your home's property records. We call it paper terrorism, and it's a very real problem and potential risk for all property owners. How can this happen? Almost every state has an open and public recording system, meaning that you cannot freeze your chain of title like you can your credit report. Plus, county recorders are not authorized by law to validate legal claims made in documents. Property fraud can involve the recording or filing of false or forged transfers of ownership, quitclaim deeds, or the filing of a bogus lien to steal property or harass an unsuspecting property owner. Even if your home is paid off, that does not stop someone from filing a new deed on top of it without the property owner's knowledge. Let's look at this NBC5 investigative report that takes a close look at how property fraud can occur.
By law, it is a line anyone can stand in and a fee anyone can pay. $40 is all it takes to get a deed or other document officially recorded in Cook County, a simple perk of open government openly abused by serious scammers.
I think they call them, financial parasites.
She was new to her office as recorder of deeds when Karen Yarborough says she first spotted the trouble.
To steal a home, all you have to do is doctor some paperwork up and Photoshop it, bring it to the recorder's office, record it, voila, you own a home.
Con artists exploiting a system that relies on the honesty of those who use it, recording forged documents in order to steal a home outright. Sound far-fetched?
This is a kind of crime that I never imagined that could happen.
It did to Chicago Treasurer Stephanie Neely until it happened to her.
When I get this call, I'm like, what do you mean someone has changed the name on my deed? What do you mean? How did they do that?
In her case, a stranger recorded a fraudulent deed, waited until she was at work, and then changed the lock.
They want to physically be in your house, because once they're there, it's very difficult to get them out.
Precisely what happened to this Chicago woman.
This individual had paperwork that was Xerox that showed the deed was in his name.
She asked us to conceal her identity because
you're in constant fear that they will try something next, because believe it or not, they did come back 3 days later.
One man connected to her case was arrested and convicted. As the recorder's office continued to field fake documents,
I decided that I couldn't sit idly by and watch this happen.
Yarborough brought in this man.
They believe that the government created artificial duplicates of all of us.
An expert on sovereign citizens, the extreme anti-government movement often behind this crime.
They believe they can completely ignore our government and do whatever they want to do with impunity.
Pitcavage calls it paper terrorism and teaches the red flags, like the punctuation sovereigns add in the middle of names, the refusal to use mainstream addresses or zip codes, and how they employ lengthy, arcane terms. The flurry of documents they file may be fake, but their threat is real.
They're bullies. They're brazen. They think that nothing can touch them.
A lot of times they'll come in and overwhelm our frontline staff. It may be 20 of them will come in.
Yarborough has a catchy comparison she uses to get a non-believer's attention. In Illinois, it is easier to steal a home than it is to steal a car.
It's fraud and, they're taking people's homes.
So there is now a simple way for some homeowners to protect themselves, the free property fraud alert system. You load your property index number, then you get an alert if any document is recorded in connection with your property. Counties across the country are now turning to this kind of system as these cases of mortgage and property fraud continue to grow. Lisa Parker, NBC5, investigates.
To combat this problem, Clerk Yarborough created a property fraud unit with investigators and caseworkers who respond to and investigate any complaints of property fraud. The clerk's office also offers a free property fraud alert that will provide a telephone call or email to the property owner anytime a document is recorded against their property or the property of a loved one. There are 3 easy ways to sign up for the clerk's free property fraud alert. You may sign up in person at the clerk's office, you can sign up online, or you can sign up with a telephone call. Once registered, if you receive an alert or have a reason to be concerned about property fraud, you can contact the clerk's property fraud unit and our staff can help research the problem and coordinate a response. Call 312-603-4000 or visit our website at cookcountyclerk.com/property fraud. On a related note, while we're on the topic of your chain of title and fraud, property owners often need to obtain an official copy of their property deed when purchasing a home or for tax purposes. You should be aware there is a predatory practice aimed at homeowners in which companies offer a copy of your property's deed at a large markup price, sometimes exceeding $200. The clerk's office wants to remind you that we offer the same service on our website starting at just $5. In-person prices can range from $10 to $55 depending on the format and age of the document. So either way, there's no reason to pay exorbitant prices to gain access to these essential documents. Now, let's move on to the second part of our program, which is making plans to manage your property and assets in the event of your death. As Clerk Yarborough noted, no one wants to talk about death or end-of-life planning, but it's critical to manage your assets to protect your family and loved ones. Having a sound end-of-life plan is one of the greatest gifts that you can provide to your children and family members. Consider this. What do you think these 3 legendary individuals have in common? Prince, Aretha Franklin,
87 years ago, our fathers,
and Abraham Lincoln. Actually, they have something very unfortunate in common. They failed to make plans for their assets upon their death. No will, no trust, and no plan. Now, let's consider someone who thought he had it right. Music legend James Brown, the godfather of soul. When he passed away in 2006, Brown's estate was worth an estimated $90 million. When he died, Brown left behind a plan for most of his estate to pay for scholarships for children in need in South Carolina, the state where he was born. But that will was challenged by family members after his death, resulting in more than 12 lawsuits. It took more than a decade of litigation before Mr. Brown's assets were designated as he had intended. So how do you get it right when it comes to your property after death? The best advice is to consult an attorney or estate planning professional to provide you with advice for your specific circumstances. But you should also know that under Illinois law, you can transfer your home, your car, or your bank account to a loved one without a will or a trust, and without having to pay any fees or court costs. Here are the details on how to transfer your property. First, a transfer on death instrument. The clerk's office has a free document on our website known as a transfer on death instrument. We call it a toady. No, not that kind of toady. You can also obtain this document at no cost from any attorney or legal aid organization. The form should be completed and notarized and then recorded at the clerk's office in our recording operations division. The transfer on death instrument will then be recorded on your property's chain of title, and, upon your death, The person designated to receive your property can do so after completing the required forms. Please note that the clerk's office cannot assist you in the preparation of a transfer on death instrument or any legal document. We do not provide legal advice to customers. Next, let's discuss a payable on death instrument. You can transfer the funds from your local bank account in a similar way. Utilizing a tool known as payable on death instrument, a person can transfer assets in a bank account to the beneficiary of their choosing after death. A payable on death instrument can be obtained and used at most financial institutions for checking and savings accounts, as well as certificates of deposits, CDs, money markets, and savings bonds. Even if you have completed a payable on death instrument, the account holder has full control of their funds in the account until the time of their death. When the account holder passes, the beneficiary can claim specified assets directly from the financial institution without having to wait for probate court proceedings. Finally, let's discuss a beneficiary affidavit. There is also a mechanism to transfer your car to a designated beneficiary. A vehicle owner may change, add, or remove a beneficiary on the title of their car by completing a free beneficiary affidavit through the Illinois Secretary of State's office. To obtain this beneficiary affidavit, go to the Illinois Secretary of State website at www.ilsos.gov. Keep in mind that if money is still owed on your home or vehicle at the time of your death, your beneficiary will be responsible for the mortgage and payments moving forward. On behalf of Clerk Karen Yarborough, we hope that you have found this presentation useful. The clerk's office is your first line of defense against property fraud, so we hope that you will take this opportunity to sign up for our free property fraud alert if you have not already done so. Managing your property and your assets in the event of your death is also critical to protecting your family and your assets, and to ensure that your wishes are carried out after your death. A copy of this presentation is available on the clerk's website if you would like to review it again or share with a friend or family member. Please visit www.cookcountyclerk.com/PAD resources to review the presentation. For more information on how to host a Property After Death Property Fraud Forum in your community, contact our Special Assistant to the Clerk for Community Affairs, Robin Staggers, at 312-603-3974 or email robin.staggers@cookcountyil.gov. Now let's ask the volunteer attorneys who are joining us to introduce themselves, and we will open up our presentation for your questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? As Ms. Staggers introduced earlier, my name is Jim Gleffy. I am the Deputy Chief of Staff and Labor Counsel for the Cook County Clerk's Office. And I'd like to welcome each and every one of you here today for this presentation. Thanks for sharing your afternoon with us. I just wanted to let you know, as a lawyer for the Clerk's Office, I am a lawyer, but I cannot serve as your lawyer. I am a lawyer for the County Clerk's Office. I can answer questions as they relate to our office, but I can't offer you legal advice. But with that said, I have an attorney sitting next to me, Lisa Murphy from Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. Let's give it up for Lisa, who's come all the way here with us today to answer some of your questions. And she's here volunteering her time and expertise with you just as a public service. She's not being paid by the clerk's office to be here. And you are free to consult with her or any other qualified attorney to help address your legal concerns. I also want to let you know that the Center for Disability and Elder Law is also here in the back. They're back by the refrigerator. They can offer you legal advice for free in certain circumstances as well. So I would encourage you to consult with them after our program to see if you qualify for their free services. And with that said, I know there's a number of questions that
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Murphy, as Jim said, and I'm an attorney with Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. We offer free legal services to residents of Cook County that qualify. And I left some information about one of our programs. In addition to estate planning, we offer services for those of you that may have loved ones that have died, leaving real property, and needing to probate services. So thank you all for having me.
Now we need the questions.
At this time, I want you to pass your questions down to your right or to the left, and Lindsay or Brian is going to collect them. I need to introduce another one of our staff attorneys. His name is Devin Mapes, and he's in the back of the table. He's joined us this evening, so he can assist us with some of the questions that you may have for the Cook County Clerk's office. So how was that for free information? Great information, right? And people perish for what? The lack of knowledge. So now you have a little bit more knowledge about what's available to you, options that you may have, and you also know a little bit more about the clerk's office. So we talked to you about our property fraud alert, we talked to you about our veteran services, we talked to you about our property after death program, but we have other services that are offered through the Cook County Clerk's office, and you can investigate that. We have vital records that hold your marriage, death, and all your other licenses. We also have our tax redemptions office, so our tax services office, and that office helps you redeem your property if your property is taken for the taxes. Did you know that? Yes, so it's called our tax redemption office. We also have a program through the Cook County Clerk's office, our elections. We do suburban elections. Did you know that? We're responsible for all suburban elections. And with that said, we are also hiring for elections. We pay $250 for election judges and $385 for polling place technicians, and that's for 1 day's work. So we are in need of those, yes, for suburban elections, for people for those suburban elections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the questions to Jim and field them to make sure we don't have any duplicates and to make sure that all of your questions get answered. Is that fair? That's fair. Okay. So what are the qualifications to see if you qualify for free legal services?
If you're referring to CVLS, or most legal aid organizations are going to have income guidelines that they'll have you qualify for. So you'll do an intake and we'll take your income information. If we can't help, we can usually refer you to a private attorney or a low-cost attorney that can help, though.
Would we like the CDEL to talk about their qualifications as well for different programs?
Absolutely. Marlo?
I'm pretty loud, so I don't know. But for Center for Disability and Elder Law, we help seniors, individuals who are 60 or older, or individuals with a permanent disability. And we define permanent disability by self-identification. So we're not going to make you give us disability benefits or something like that. We do as well have income guidelines, which are around 200% of the federal poverty guidelines, which is a whole formula that gets done when we give you a call, or you give us a call and we do that in.
That's great. We got free services for you guys. So they're going to have a form on the 5th to help people fill out the transfer on death instruments. So there are free legal services available to you. All you have to do is take advantage of them, right? Now, if you sign up for fraud alert, do you have to renew the form?
Renew the property fraud form?
Yes.
No, once you complete the form one time, you're in this. Oh, sure. Hi. So no, once you sign up for property fraud alert, you don't need to sign up multiple times. There's no expiration date unless you tell us you don't want to receive the alerts anymore. So you complete the form, you fill it out, you give it to us, we put it in our system, and you should be getting alerts in the manner in which you choose, whether it's email or phone or both. So we have copies of the form here. It's this form here tonight. If you fill it out and turn it into our staff after the presentation, we will take steps to make sure you are in our system, and we'll be getting alerts going forward if there's anything else recorded on your property's chain of title.
If you have a living trust, do you need to have your heir's name on your property or bank account?
So you can, if you have, I'll stand up. If you have a living trust, you're not limited to one form of estate planning. You can also name beneficiaries on bank accounts, on your car. There's different, your property is going to be considered part of your estate. If you have a beneficiary on it, it's not considered part of your estate. A trust is also, it's a different mechanism of an estate plan. So a will is going to take over when you die. A trust starts when you're alive. It's kind of like, I like to think of it like a backpack. You kind of create the backpack and then you put stuff into it. So you're going to title things in the name of the trust. And then a trust allows property to pass outside of probate. So you're going to name a trustee. That trustee is going to be in charge of everything in the backpack. While you're alive, you're likely going to be that trustee. And then when you die, that gets passed to somebody else to manage that property. But let's say you have a bank account and it's not part of the trust and you add a beneficiary to that, that's going to be considered separate. So you can have then that account would go to the beneficiaries that you name. Same with a car. If that's not in a trust or it's in your name and you add a beneficiary, it'll go to that beneficiary. And real estate works the same way. So if you can put real estate into a trust and then it would pass according to the way what you put in the trust, however you decide who you want it to go to, who you want to be in charge of that. Or you can do a toady and that'll be separate. So that's a toady is going to stay, the property will stay in your name, and then you name a beneficiary. As soon as you die, it goes to your beneficiary. They don't have to do anything to receive that property. They should fill out an acceptance and record that, but they don't have to. It's an automatic transfer. So, does that answer the question? It's complicated.
How often should I check my deed?
I think you should check it as often as you think you should. But if you sign up for the free property fraud alert program and you get alerts from us, that will alleviate the need for you to check your deed as often, because we will tell you if there's any changes made to your chain of title. We kind of take all that work out of it for you.
Can you talk about reverse mortgages? What's a reverse mortgage?
What is a reverse mortgage? So a reverse mortgage is just like any other mortgage. It's a mortgage where it is a lien on your property. And the difference between a conventional mortgage is they give you the money up front to pay for the home to purchase it. Reverse mortgage is you actually paid for your home, or you have a significant amount of equity in your home, and the mortgage gives you the money out of the equity of your home to use to spend on different things you might need, living expenses, medications, food, whatever you need the money for. You could take money out either in a lump sum or on a monthly basis. However, you don't have to pay that money back until either you move out of your home or you pass away. If you pass away, that mortgage becomes due and it becomes an issue for your heirs. So I don't know if, Lisa, you have anything to add to that?
The only thing to add is with a reverse mortgage, what we find is once someone has passed away, if the family wants to keep the home, you have to actually buy it back from the mortgage company at 95% of the fair market value. So you don't get the benefit of all the equity that you've built up because you've taken that out for a reverse mortgage. And then the family has to usually come up with quite a bit of money in order to keep the property. So reverse mortgages can be good planning if you need money for something, you need cash for life expenses. There are circumstances where it's a good tool, but just know that you're likely not going to be able to pass that real estate on if you take out a reverse mortgage, or your family will have to come up with the money to get the property back.
Is there assistance to file or do a revocable trust, and how much does it cost to complete it?
For a revocable trust, you could contact a private attorney. Their fees are going to vary quite a bit on what kind of property you have, what needs to be put into the trust, and how much help you need with retitling property. Usually they'll take a retainer and then, however much assistance you need. Services like CVLS, or I think if CDL does revocable trust, usually those are free. But again, you would want to talk with an attorney about what you have, what you want to happen with your stuff after you die, and then they would help you come up with an estate plan that makes sense for you and what you have. Because a trust is not going to make sense for everybody.
So if you have a land trust, will your property go through probate or directly to your named beneficiary?
So a land trust is a separate document. Usually those are created with the title company. And it's a form that you fill out saying, when I die, it kind of works like a trust. You leave it to certain beneficiaries. And usually the land trust takes care of, your beneficiaries would go to the land trust and they would have to create a deed to get the property out of the land trust. So no, I don't think it has to go through probate if you have a land trust. And there are other benefits to a land trust. But.
Yeah, I just think that if it was a land trust, the trustee would issue what's called a trustee's deed. It's coming from the trustee to whoever the beneficiaries are of the trust. So you wouldn't have to go through an expensive probate process to do that.
But one other thing to add on a land trust, because we see a lot of these things, after the fact, but if you have a land trust, it'll have like an expiration date on it, or it might say it expires at a certain time. But as long as the property is titled in the land trust, it's in that land trust. You have to take it out. You have to retitle it for it to be out of that land trust. If you want something different than, let's say you have beneficiaries to like all of your kids, and you don't want it to go to all of your kids, you want it to go to one of them, you have to actually take it out of the land trust or change your beneficiary designations. It doesn't just go away if you stop paying the fees or anything like that. It stays there.
Can you file a trust through the Chicago Title and Trust Company, or do you have to retain a lawyer?
I believe, so that Chicago Title and Trust Company would be a title company. And I think you can work with them directly to create a land trust. They have a packet of paperwork that you fill out. But there is specific language for naming beneficiaries. So an attorney can help you with that as well.
And just as a piece of information, a title company, while they could be great at setting up a land trust, they're not there to give you legal advice and tell you whether or not a land trust is the best solution for you. So I would suggest talking to an attorney and talking to them about your situation, and they will tell you if a land trust or some other vehicle is more appropriate.
Okay, this is for our free legal services. So they say, what's the income requirements for the free legal aid?
So like the attorney from CEDO mentioned, it's going to be based on, it's kind of like there's a whole graph, and it's based on your household size, how many people are in your household, how many, who's working, who's not working, how many children. So it's kind of case by case, but usually it's based off of the federal income poverty guidelines. And I think ours are 175 or 200. They change them every year, but if you call, we can talk to you at CVLS, and most legal aids are going to work the same way.
And I believe Marlo from CDEL in the back said that it's roughly comes out to 200% of the federal poverty line. Is that correct, Marlo? Yep. Okay, got it.
Okay, other than property fraud alert registration form, are any other actions being considered to stop the fraud?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. So Clerk Yarbrough, back when she was Recorder Yarbrough, really took the initiative to create a property fraud unit in her office to combat property fraud. So if you feel like you've been victimized by property fraud, you could come to our office or you could call our property fraud unit. And the phone number is 312-603-4000. And we have investigators on staff that will research the issue. You can talk about why you believe that a transaction or a document is fraudulent. And they could actually go into court if they believe it's fraudulent and tell an administrative law judge that this document needs to be removed from your chain of title. And that's a free service that we provide to the public. So everyone who's a victim of property fraud also could go hire their own attorney and initiate what's called a quiet title action, but we can actually take on your behalf before an administrative law judge, a case where the judge would rule that the deed that's fraudulent needs to be removed from your chain of title. And going forward, it wouldn't affect your chain of title when you're trying to transfer your property or refinance your mortgage or whatever you need to do. So that is something we do in addition to the property fraud alert. And those two services go very well together. If you get a property fraud alert from our office and you have a question about whether or not the document was actually fraudulent, I would call our fraud unit at 312-603-4000 and tell our investigator, I got a fraud alert. I don't know what it is. Can you look into it for me and help me remove it from my chain of title?
Second part of that question, why is it so easy to steal someone's property?
So Illinois has open recording laws. Basically, the recorder's office and now the clerk's office serves as the public record. So everyone could see who owns parcels of property. And we're basically required to record all documents that meet certain requirements. We're not allowed to scrutinize signatures or reject documents if we don't think it's a good idea to record it. That's why we have a fraud unit, to go in after the fact and say, hey, this was fraudulent. Let's remove it from your chain of title. The people that are committing property fraud are very sophisticated criminals. They know how they can facilitate these frauds in ways that benefit them. Most of the time, they're not trying to actually take your property. They're trying to get the equity out of your home, use it to get a mortgage and steal the money, or a lot of other reasons. They might try to say, hey, I'm a landlord, I own this property, and rent out your property and take the money and run. So there's a lot of different motivations that criminals have to committing property fraud. And they know how to do it in a way that's going to skirt the rules. But that's why we've taken additional actions to come after them both through civil side, through our administrative process, and we also work with criminal authorities in the event that criminal activity has occurred too. So, I don't like the fact that it can be easy to steal a home, but we do everything in our power to stop it and prevent it from happening as well. The question is, how can you make sure all your properties are registered for the property fraud alert? And once again, you can sign up in a few different ways. You can sign up online at our website, cookcountyclerk.com. You can call at the number that's listed there as well, or you could just simply fill out this form that we've disseminated here today. It's the form that at the very top, it says free property fraud alert registration. It allows you to put your PIN number and your address. If you don't know your PIN number, that's fine. Put your address. We can look up your PIN number for you. And you can do it for any number of properties that you own. And you can do it multiple times. If you don't remember if you did it, you can fill out the form and we'll make sure it's in there again. It doesn't cost you anything to do that, just to make sure that you're protected and you have peace of mind that we're watching out for your property.
So what's the turnaround time for fraud alert when it's reported?
So usually the fraud alert hits after a document has been what's called indexed. Indexing is after a document's been recorded, it's data entered in our system, and it's actually put into your chain of title. Usually takes a couple weeks for that to pop up in our system. Could be faster, but I don't want to promise a 48-hour turnaround if it doesn't make our system for a little bit of time. So, but usually within that amount of time, we're able to work with you and make sure that we get everything we need to take action if it's appropriate, or just let you know, hey, you refinanced your house and this was just a mortgage that you were involved. Oh yeah, I remember I did that refinance. So not every alert you're going to get is going to be indication of fraud. It's any document that gets recorded on your property. You could have done a refinance, a home equity line of credit. You could have done a quick claim deed to add a relative to your chain of title. Any number one of those things would spar alert, but then the alert just tells you to take a look at what's going on, make sure that's right.
So, Robert, can I do a point of information?
Yeah. Yes.
So what if everyone fills out this paper tonight, and let's say a week or two ago, someone already tried to put something in their property?
What I would suggest tonight, or in the next couple of days, even though you're signing up for the property fraud alert, go home, go to our website, and check your chain of title. It's really easy. All you need to do is know your PIN number. In many cases, you can search by your name. There's a lot of different ways where you could search your chain of title and just make sure that it looks right. Now, caveat, if you've owned your home for a significant amount of time, our online records only go back to 1985. Everything else is in our archives at our office. So if you bought your home in 1975 and you really haven't done anything since then, call us up. We'll be happy to look it up for you and tell you what's on your chain of title and if there's anything you need to worry about. You can call us once. The property fraud unit helps with that service as well. Once again, the phone number for the property fraud unit is 312-603-4000.
Now,
and we could get that number up in the ward office, Alderman Curtis? Yes, sir. Okay.
and we also, at our table, if you visited our table, we have bookmarks that say how to check your deed. It'll walk you step by step through the process to check your deed online. So we have that resource available to you. And if you have any questions about it at the end of the presentation, we'll be happy to answer those questions. Now, the next question, how do you transfer real estate and what's the cost? Ownership of real estate.
Do you want to talk about the different ways you could transfer real estate?
I guess it depends on what you're trying to do, but usually real estate's transferred by something called a deed, and the deed is going to have a owner and a grantor and a grantee that is giving the property. There are other mechanisms if you're transferring it through, let's say, a probate estate, someone has died. You can do an administrator's deed, an executor's deed, or what's called a release of interest in real estate, and that would transfer it to whoever the heirs are or the legatees that are named in a will. I'm sure there are other ways.
Well, the one way that we are promoting in the clerk's office is the transfer on death instrument. And that, all you have to do is complete the form. I would make sure you talk to an attorney, make sure it's completed correctly. But at the end of the day, you complete the form, you list your beneficiaries, you record it with our office, because it's not effective unless it's recorded in our office. And once it's recorded, you're good to go. If you pass away the next day after it's recorded, your beneficiaries could come in with an affidavit accepting the property, and they don't have to go through probate, and they don't have to pay exorbitant court costs or fees. It's just the cost of recording the document. And that is one of the reasons why the Illinois legislature has passed this law. They know a lot of times a home is a person's greatest asset. You know, none of us here are lottery winners, I don't think, that have a lot of extra assets going around. We have our homes. And if we could transfer our home, a lot of times they'll alleviate the need to go to probate or create trusts. So obviously it depends on your individual situation. But yeah, the toady, it's $50. It's going to go up to $59 because of changes in Springfield that have increased the rental housing support fee. But for $59, you could get a document on file with our office that determines how your property will be transferred on your death.
And the great thing about a toady also is it doesn't keep you from selling your home at a later date or taking out a mortgage. It doesn't change ownership now. So you're free to do what you want with your home after you record the toady. It just is that extra kind of backup if you die without a will or without a trust. Or even if you have those things, a toady is still a good tool because, like Jim said, it keeps things out of probate. So it can go to your family without having to pay a lawyer to go to court and wait for the court process to go through, which can take 6 months to a year. It's a transfer right away, and the family will have the property, or your loved ones can have the property going forward. So,
Okay, can you explain the difference between a trust and the will, and what are the benefits of each?
sure. So a will is a document that you sign now, and it does not take effect until you die. So you would name everybody that you want your property to go to when you die. It keeps things pretty, you don't name anything specifically, but you keep things pretty broad. My real estate, I want that to go to, my kids or my spouse. And then when you die, your family finds that will document and they file it with the Cook County Clerk of Court. And If there is something to transfer, maybe they go to court to transfer that property later, but it's a document that you sign now, and it starts when you die. Now, a trust is a little different because it's a document that it works the same way as a will when you die, but it's a document you're going to sign today, and you're going to name a trustee, and that person's kind of the person that's in charge of your property. But it starts now. When you execute a trust, it begins that same day. And like I said, it's kind of like I think about like a backpack, creating the backpack, and then you're going to start moving property into that trust. So you're going to put your bank account in the name of the trust. You'll put your real estate in the name of the trust, if it makes sense for you. Obviously, you'll talk to an attorney and make sure what you're putting in the trust makes sense. And then it kind of, once you die, then you transfer the power of that trust. You give the authority to manage your property to somebody else. So maybe your spouse or a child becomes the trustee. The benefit of a trust is because you're keeping ownership, you're kind of passing ownership to a new trustee and they just kind of take over. You don't have to go through probate to transfer everything that's in a trust. You can usually keep things out of probate court. You don't need a judge to say, yes, this trustee has the authority to transfer the property. They kind of just take over and can start doing that. So usually if real estate's in a trust, the trustee can sell the home or retitle it if they need to without having to go to court to have a judge give them that authority. A will, on the other hand, like if you leave a house in a will, a judge is going to have to give a person the authority to sell your house. And that person's usually called an executor. So that's another benefit of a toady is it keeps it out of probate. You don't have to go to a court or a judge to get authority to transfer the property. It just automatically gets transferred. But a will, if there's different circumstances, it's going to be different for each person. What's going to make sense? A trust usually takes more time to create and retitle everything. So if you don't have a lot of different, usually if you don't have a lot of properties, usually a trust is good if you have properties in different states. Because then you can keep things out of probate in each state, but if you don't, it usually doesn't make sense for everybody. Like I said, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to be more expensive if you're hiring a private attorney to do a trust, when you can usually take care of most things with either a toady or beneficiary designations, and then you kind of cover everything else with a will. But again, it's a good idea to talk to an attorney about what you have, what you're looking to do with it, what your goals are after you die, and then they can come up with a plan that makes the most sense.
One quick point about wills. A lot of times people think they have a will, they're set. They don't have to do anything else. Well, that may be true. You might not have to do anything else if you have a will. But after you pass, your heirs do have to do things in order to make sure that your wishes come to fruition. You have to hire an attorney. They have to go to court, open up a probate estate, all of this stuff. The only difference between having a will and not having a will is if you have a will, your property gets disseminated how you want. If you don't have a will, your property gets disseminated how the government has created a plan in the intestate laws. But you still have to go through the same process. The same probate process applies whether you have a will or not. I hope I made sense. Okay.
Do you charge a fee to check your deed? No.
No, we don't. It's a free service that we provide to the public.
And where was the transfer on death instrument established?
The transfer on death instrument was established down in Springfield. It was a law passed because the state legislature knew that most people's most valuable asset was their home. And rather than opening up probate estates every time someone who owned a home passed away, that they thought there's another way we could transfer property easier. And so it was established, I think, back in 2012 by the Illinois General Assembly. And our office has worked well with them in terms of getting the message out about the transfer on death instrument and giving guidance on how to utilize those types of things. We have a form online, but you also can have your own forms or work with attorneys who have forms that are the same and that would work just as well as the form in our website.
Another question with regard to the transfer on death form. It says, can it be contested?
Toadies can be contested, just like any other type of, transfer, but the way the toady works is once it's recorded, assuming that, the document's going to be notarized, it's going to be signed by witnesses. And then at the end of the day, they're going to have to challenge it at the time you recorded that you didn't, there was some reason, whether it's duress or incapacity, that didn't give you the right mindset to record the document. I would say that's difficult. Whereas, I don't know, what do you think about other manners of transferring? I think it's an issue with no matter what you do. If you have a will or a trust, they could transfer those too. I think you're less likely to see it with a toady, although that's just my opinion. I don't know if I have any data to back that up.
You'll get a demerit. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Can you change or update a toady? And is there a cost?
You can, and the only cost would be the price of recording the toady, which is, as of July 1st, it's going to be $59. So if you change your mind, you're like, I have these 3 beneficiaries, but this kid, he's really gone off the wayside. I don't want him to get my property anymore. You could just record a new one and either replace him or just take him off altogether. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility to do what you want to do in an inexpensive way.
Now, is it possible for someone to file a new toady that overrides my original toady? I'm concerned that fraudulent family members could try that.
I think we were just talking about that, young man. It has to be you that completes the toady. Someone cannot complete a toady on your behalf if they don't have an ownership interest in your property, meaning that they're not currently listed on the deed as a current owner. They can't complete a toady on your behalf. I mean, there's always the issue with forgery, but hopefully that doesn't occur.
How do you submit the toady after it's been notarized? And I think you said that it has to be brought down to our office, but they can mail it in as well, right?
Yes, you can bring it to our office at 118 North Clark. We're on the first floor, room 120. Or you can mail it into our office. Or if you're working with a title company or a law firm, some of them have the opportunity to e-record those. And so I would just inquire, however you're getting it, if you're just preparing it on your own, you could bring it in or mail it. If you're working with an attorney, I would ask them if they have the ability to e-record it. It doesn't cost more money to e-record the document. But e-recording is generally folks that work in the real estate industry, whether law firms or title companies.
Is a will needed if you only have one child and no other beneficiary?
Well, I'll give the classic attorney answer. It depends. It's going to depend on your circumstances. And I think Jim mentioned earlier, the benefit of a will is that you get to dictate who your property goes to. If you die without a will, the Illinois statute kicks in, and that's when it says it's going to determine who your heirs are by blood relation or marriage. So if you have a child, but you have a spouse, and maybe you're separated from the spouse, but not fully divorced, and you die, well, that spouse is entitled to half your property, and then the child would get the other half. So it's a good idea just to have it, just in case. If you leave one child and there's no spouse, they're the only person that's going to survive you, then they might be okay. But what happens if that child dies before you? We never want that to happen. We never plan for that to happen, but it happens. So it's always good to have a will that you can name some backup beneficiaries, some backup people to take the property, and because then otherwise it's going to be up to, like I said, to the statute. The statute's going to go through. If you don't leave anyone below you, it's going to go up to parents, siblings, and it kind of goes up and throughout the family tree. And there might be somebody in there that you didn't want to take your property, that you don't have a relationship with anymore. We see it all the time. We have family members that pass away, and then we get They come to us to probate the estate, and we've got cousins and nieces and nephews that are taking property that you never intended. So it's always a good idea to have it, even if your family doesn't need to use it. It's a good idea to have a will in place, a power of attorney in place, and then maybe a toady as well, just to cover all of your bases. But again, talk with an attorney and they'll go through what you have and make sure that what you have is working the way you want it to work.
Okay, so if the child, okay, so the question is if I have a husband and I bought my property before I married my husband, is he entitled to my property?
If you were married at the time of your death and you die without a will, Illinois law says the property goes half to your spouse, half to any kids that you have. If you die without kids and with a spouse, the spouse takes the whole thing. Whether or not you bought the property before you were married, during the marriage, after you got married, after you separated, if you're still legally married, that person's entitled to half or the full amount if you die without kids. So and we see it happen. People, things happen you don't intend, so it's a good idea to look at that and make sure that you have something in place if you don't want it going to that spouse.
Okay, this is about transfer taxes. It's 2 questions. Real estate transfer tax, am I exempt? Real estate transfer tax declaration, do I have to pay a fee with a trustee's deed or with the City of Chicago exempt stamp? Who asked that question? I want to make sure I'm getting it right.
Sounds like the question is with a transfer through either a toady or a will or whatever, do you have to pay the transfer tax? I don't believe that's the case. You don't have to pay transfer tax on a
No,
a situation where you're giving your property after your death.
my understanding is if there's not money changing hands, if someone's not purchasing the property from you, it should be exempt. So those would be exempt transfers. But
Okay, I have some situational questions.
Our favorite.
How do people move into your home if it's vacant and claim your homestead rights? Yes.
I don't know how they unlock the door or break in and why? I don't know why. I mean, they're trying
They said
to.
how? How do they do it?
I mean, people do it. They don't necessarily. I don't think that they would actually have any rights in the property, so to speak. But it's a nuisance for the homeowner. You'd have to go into court and evict them. Or you would have to file a quiet title action to dispel any homestead rights that they're claiming, right? And so the court would have to say this person's here, they don't have any right to the property, and then after that, then you'd have to evict them. But you're saying it, and I know it's very difficult to evict people in the city of Chicago. So this is why, I mean, that's why this kind of crime is very serious. And that's why the clerk's office has taken it serious and taken these measures to put in place our property fraud unit and all these free services available to the residents of Cook County, because we know how traumatizing it could be to be a victim of this type of crime.
Okay. If a will names someone to receive a house, is it necessary for other people, such as other siblings, to agree on the for the person to have the house? So I guess this is saying, let me read it again. If a will names someone to receive a house, is it necessary for other people, such as other siblings, to agree for the person to get the house?
So I think I understand the question, and the short answer is no. Your will is your decision, and you get to decide who gets the property. However, if to actually transfer the property, your executor that you name as the person in charge of your property after you die is going to go to court. They're going to file your will with the court, and they're going to ask the judge to approve it and admit it to probate and give the executor the authority to transfer that property. Now, the other people in the family don't have to agree to your will, because your will is your will. But they are entitled to notice of your heirs by law are entitled to notice of those proceedings. And if they want to make things difficult, they can make it difficult. But overall, if you have a valid will and it's signed according to Illinois law and it's done properly, the judge is going to honor that will and they're going to say, no, this is who, this is who this person wanted the property to go to. The executor will transfer it to that person. They'll record a deed with the recorder of deeds office or with the county clerk's office. And that property will be transferred whether or not these other people agree. But that's another benefit of a toady is it keeps it out of that process and you can give it to the beneficiaries directly.
Now, can I throw a wrinkle in that hypothetical? There's a person that lives in the home that may be your sibling that doesn't want to leave, even though you are the person that got the property through the will. What do?
That happens a lot. In that case, you go to probate court. You get the authority under the court to transfer the property according to the will. And then the executor can also file an eviction action to evict that person. You'll hear the phrase, possession is 9/10 of the law. If the person's in possession of the home, they have to be evicted through court. There are ways to work out agreements where maybe they agree to move out without having to go through all of that process. But generally speaking, the process is going to be through eviction court.
Is there a cost for eviction?
Yeah, there's a
Yes.
court filing fee. I'm not sure how much the filing fee is. It's like $300 some odd dollars to file for an eviction. And then you have to show that you're the rightful owner. So you would have to do that with
So the other part
probate
of the
proceedings.
probate question is how much does it cost to go through probate?
The same thing. So there's a filing fee for probate court. I believe it's $367, but don't quote me on that. If you are below a certain income guideline, there you can apply to have that fee waived. I will say in Cook County, they require you to have an attorney to go through probate court. So you can, like CVLS represents low income people in probate proceedings, and we qualify to have that fee waived. So there's no cost to actually file the case if you're represented by CVLS. But if you're going through a private attorney, you'll pay the filing fee. You'll have to pay your attorney usually they charge hourly. And then you pay to transfer the property, you pay for the recording fees, and usually you have to pay, sometimes you have to pay a bond which is like an insurance policy if there's no will. So usually a will will say we don't have to pay the bond, but if there's no will, then you pay a bond. And that's usually like ranges, but they start at $100. So if you add all that up, it can be kind of expensive.
My neighbor's mother passed with no will. They completed a transfer upon death instrument for her house, but did not get it notarized before she died. Children want one son to have the house. What should they do?
Unfortunately, if you don't record the transfer on death instrument before the person passes, it's just another piece of paper on your desk. So make sure, that's why it's so important that once the document's completed, notarized, ready to go, please bring it to our office. We would hate for something to happen. We see this more often than people would think, where they're bringing in the transfer on death instrument after the person's already passed. And unfortunately, in that situation, if there's no other mechanism like a trust or a will, you got to go to probate. And that's...
So in that case, I'll give you our phone number. I would have them call CVLS 312-332-1624. Again, 312-332-1624. We have a program called PCAP. It's Probate Court Assistance Project. And so we specifically help people who a loved one has died. The main asset is real estate, and the family lives in the home. Usually there's one person that lives in the home. Everybody else agrees that person should take the property. But we have a number of heirs, and the heirs all sign off saying, yes, we want this person to take the property. We open up a probate estate and transfer the property to that heir, get all the heirs to sign off on that, and then the family can move on and keep that valued asset, the wealth that the family has kind of accrued in the family without losing it to like a tax sale or something like that. So if everybody's in agreement, we can help transfer that property without too much problem.
I'm going to go over a couple of more questions with respect to time. So if we didn't get to your question, you're free to come and speak with the attorneys at the end of our presentation. but we want to be respectful of the alderman's time and our host venue time. Three more questions. If husband is deceased, how do you take his name off the house, and is it necessary? Elder law came out to talk with seniors about any legal does elder law come out to talk with seniors about any legal situations, and will they open the Elder Justice Center again that helps 60 plus seniors because it was closed when COVID happened?
Sounds like
Cito?
there's a couple different questions
There
there.
are.
So the first question says, if your husband is deceased, how do you take the name off the house, and is it necessary? So long and the short of it is, if you hold your property as joint tenants or tenants in the entirety, which is how most married people generally hold their property, you can come to our office and file an affidavit, which generally says that one of my joint tenants has passed away, and it'll effectively remove them. Now, is it necessary? No, it doesn't really affect your rights as a homeowner to leave the deceased person on the chain of title if you're a joint tenant.
If it doesn't, if you check your deed and it doesn't have that joint tenants or tenants by the entirety language on there, though it is a good idea to kind of work out the title, because I think it defaults to what's called tenants in common, which is 50-50. And we see that a lot where a spouse has died years and years ago and the property was held as tenants in common, and then we're having to deal with two estates. So if you have a question about it, you check your deed, and if you've got a question about it, you can always ask an attorney.
Okay. How would I go about leaving my assets to my church? What would happen if I have no one to leave my assets to, and will the state take my property?
It's a good question. It's gonna usually, if you die without a will, like I said, the law is going to create a will for you. It's going to go through all of your family in it. It would be quite difficult not to find someone, because it's going to keep going up, grandparents, parents, and down through the family tree until you find a beneficiary. But it's up to that person to come and assert that right to your property. They'd have to come to a court and say, I'm this person's heir, and we want to deal with their property. If there's no one around to do that, usually your property is going to sit for a while, and eventually the state treasurer's office is going to kind of, I don't know if they take ownership of it, but if you've all heard of iCash, there might be property sitting out there in your name, and it might just sit there for a while until a certain amount of time goes by, and it would go to the state. But if it's real property, usually at a certain point you don't pay your property taxes, then it's going to be sold in a tax sale. An investor will probably take ownership of it and sell it, but there's a lot of different ways that the property can be worked out after you die. So it's a good idea to have a plan.
I want to get back to one of the questions that was asked. It was elder law. Does elder law come out to talk with seniors about any legal things? Marl?
Yes. So we actually do a number of workshops. If you're interested in having us come to one of your locations, do take our information, give us a call. In addition, I think the question was, are there, restrictions to our office because of COVID? So we still do have COVID guidelines in place. However, that doesn't mean we're not meeting people in person. It means that we will be able to meet with you. Generally, you'll make an appointment, and then we'll be able to meet with you and be masked during the meeting. However, I will be in about a month starting open walk-in hours in Austin and Auburn Gresham. And those, it'll be, you don't have to make an appointment, but you do have to be masked. So the timing of that, it should be 2 days a week in Austin, 2 days a week in Auburn Gresham. Come talk to me at the table if you're interested in that. And I can tell you more about it and keep you posted as to when they go live next month.
Got it? Free services. Now, this last question is related to your bank account. If I have a beneficiary on my bank account, do I need a payable on death instrument?
I think generally speaking, they're one and the same. So when you open up your bank account, a lot of times you could tell them, I want a payable on death account. And you just fill out the paperwork at that time. It's similar to what the toady is, except it's just from the bank. And each bank has their own forms that they use. And you just say, I want a terminable on death account. And you list the beneficiaries on the form. And when you pass away, whoever the beneficiaries can go to the bank, provide them with a copy of your death certificate, and they'll be able to get whatever's left in the bank account at that time.
Just a note on bank accounts. I have a lot of clients that will come in and they will maybe add a child to a bank account. Maybe it's a convenience account. They have a child that helps them pay bills and write checks out of the account. So they'll add that child as a joint owner, thinking that, when I die, that my child is going to know that I want this to go to all of my kids and not just to them. The reality is when you die, the property, that account becomes theirs and it's up to them to share it. And your children may not be as benevolent as you think they are. They don't always want to share with siblings. And really there's nothing that the siblings can do if they decide not to share it. So something to keep in mind before you add a child to an account like that, because it's going to become theirs and then then they're off to Vegas.
And I just want to add one more point about bank accounts to that vein. Sometimes the issue isn't necessarily whether the person has bad intentions. And I'll give you a story from my experience just as an example. When I was in college, I went as a freshman. I had never had a bank account before. We thought it'd be a good idea to open up a bank account for me. But my mother, in her infinite wisdom, said, you know what, you never had a bank account. I'm going to put myself on your account. Okay, great. Thanks, Mom. Unbeknownst to me, she was having some financial difficulties at the time. And so I get to school, I get my student loan check, I put it in the bank. The next week, the money's gone. And I called my mom and said, Mom, you stole my money. She literally knew nothing about it. But because of whatever financial trouble she was going into, her other bank went and took it from my account. And there's nothing I could do about it because she was a joint owner. So you have to be very careful when you're thinking about putting people on your bank accounts. Beneficiaries are better.
It's the same for real estate. So some parents might think I'm going to add my child to the title of my home, thinking that, then it goes to them when I die. But you're opening yourself up to all of their creditors. If they're married, maybe they get a divorce. That property might be subject to their divorce. So a toady is a better mechanism to do that if you want your property to go to your kids when you die. I would really advise against adding a child as a joint owner to a home.
So that was our last question. I thank you all for your questions. I give accolades to our attorneys who were here to answer your questions. They did a great job, right? So all of this is free information, right? So it's no good to you if you don't use it. So a question was asked, how can I see this presentation again? You can go to our website, cookcountyclerkil.gov, and go to our media section and click on property after death. Or you can do Facebook or Instagram. I think if you go to Instagram, you can see all of the presentations that we have put on across Cook County, and there are different questions asked by every different audience. So you can view this presentation in a few days, Carlos. It'll be posted. So you can go and review the presentation in a couple of days so that you can look at the questions that were asked and what we do, see what we do, and all of that. Yes, ma'am. CookCountyClerkIL.gov. CookCountyClerk.com. Yeah, CookCountyClerkIL.com. And if you want to apply for your veterans discount card, you see Brian. And if you have your property fraud alert form, fill that out, sign it at the bottom. You don't have to have your PIN number. We can look up your PIN number. Turn the form into us and show one of our staff your ID so that we can make sure that you're not the fraudster. The other thing is, if you give me a few more moments, If you want to have one of these presentations, there are some requirements that you have to meet. You contact me, Robin Staggers at Cook County, robin.staggers@cookcountyil.gov. Send me an email. You have to at least have 50 people that you can get here. You also need to partner with an organization so that we cover the entire community that your event is going to be taking place in, because we don't want to leave anybody out. So we want to make sure that you meet those two requirements. Then we'll look at a date to see if it's available on our calendar. Once we confirm all of those, then we move forward with planning the event. The other thing is, if you want to see about the free services that are offered, you can see CDEL at the table in the back and talk to them. They have a free forum coming up. And also, my cards are on the table if you need to reach me after this presentation. So remember, we have all kinds of services available through the Cook County Clerk's office, and we're here to serve you.